One evening, a couple in their late 40s entered a store where I worked as a cashier in a supermarket. This is a girl talking. The woman was wearing slippers and was walking heavily. When I saw her approaching one of the newly tiled areas in the store, I was afraid that she might stumble on a loose tile. They had just laid down new tile in the restaurant, or rather in the store. I opened my mouth to call out to her to be careful, but she was too far away from me, and I was too shy to raise my voice. Everyone knows these moments when you freeze and you just don't know what to do. Sometimes it happens. I remember when I had my second daughter. She was 6 months old or 7 months old. We rented a house up in the Catskills. My daughter Pearlie just dropped right in the pool. 6 months. I froze. And I'm a doctor. I should be able to run right away. It was my wife who was very fast. She brought her up and she, did a little Heimlich maneuver and pulled the water out of her. Sometimes you freeze, right? And then I saw the woman trip and fall forward flat on her face on the floor. Now, before we go on with the story, let's find out about this couple. Their names are Ephraim and Eliza. They are an Orthodox couple who had married many years earlier at the age of 22, hoping to start a large family. But that didn't happen. After a few years, they went to see a special fertility doctor and tried various treatments, but nothing helped. 10 years passed, and during that time, their brothers and sisters married, and nieces and nephews were born to everyone, but they themselves, Ephraim and Eliza, were still childless. 0, no kids. After 18 years of marriage, could you imagine the heartbreak and the disappointment and the pain? Their last name was Meir. The Meirs decided to start hosting a special class in their house for women in similar situations who don't have kids. It began with only 3 women. This is taking place in Israel. It began with only 3 women, but as the news spread, other childless women began to attend. In time, they had a group of 15 women coming to get chizuk. None of them had children, right? All waiting for children from 15 to 18 years. Imagine, every woman in this group hasn't had kids between 15 and 18 years. They learned the laws of proper speech, right? Lashon hara, heard lectures, and shared their experiences with each other. Can I ask you, is this mine? Thank you. They offered encouragement, support, and advice to each other, besides sharing useful information about new treatments and ways to achieve their dream of having a child. A year later, the first member of the group held the baby in her arms. And then from there on in, there was good news every few months. Could you imagine? Every couple that was there, or every woman that was there, had been childless from between 15 and 18 years. Within 7 years, all the ladies gave birth, one after the other, except one. The host, Eliza Meir, the founder of the group. The couple was childless now for over 20 years. They supported all their friends throughout those years, worried and held hands, cried with sorrow at failures, and smiled with joy at successes. Shed tears of happiness at every birth and sobbed as they prayed for their own miracle, but they still waited and waited and waited. When the 25-year mark was reached, the group of formerly childless women started meeting behind the couple's back. They rallied everyone they knew to pray that the Meir should also merit to have their prayers answered. It would be impossible to count how many prayers were uttered from loving hearts on behalf of this wonderful couple, whom every friend saw as angels, because they had eased the pain of so many other couples. The miracle that they had all experienced was attributed to the Eliza and Ephraim for the warm feeling and bond they created between these other couples. Right? And they were the ones responsible to allow these people to have kids. Now it's 26 years. Although they didn't speak of it, the Meirs had lost hope of ever having children. Yet their group of friends refused to give up and persisted in praying for them. And then after 27 years, the Meirs underwent a special new treatment. And it worked. It all went well. They were told by springtime they would have a baby. There were no words to describe their feelings. Their joy was restrained, but they decided not to share the news with family and friends until Eliza was well into her pregnancy. You know what, Ein Hara, you want to be careful. Imagine now, it's 26 years. 27. There are no words to describe their feelings. Their joy was restrained. So, past 3 months, in which the parents-to-be expected their first child at the age of 49, both 49, carried their news carefully, and quietly and secretly, not telling a soul. When the 3 months were over, the doctor informed them that everything's good, and as far as he was concerned, they could feel free to share the news that she was expecting a baby. They decided to invite their families and close friends to the next class, where they would reveal their joyful secret to everyone at the same time. On the night before the class, Ephraim was trying to formulate exactly what he would say to everyone. A single line came to his mind, and he ran to write it down. Call out to my mother, for her joy appears. The big night arrived. It started out with a regular class, and then the friends and relatives trickled in. They all sat around, talking and schmoozing, enjoying the delicious food that Eliza had prepared. No one had any clue what was going on. Suddenly, Ephraim asked for everyone's attention. At first, there was still murmuring in the room, but a hush fell when everyone noticed that Ephraim, usually so cool and self-controlled, was crying. He unfolded the tear-stained page he had written on the night before. In a shaky voice, he began to read, call out to my mother, for her joy appears, from her son that was bound all these 49 years. Tell her, oh now, cry out with gladness and tears. Our prayers are now answered, hopes of so many years. Everyone sat in silence, or else too stunned to speak, not daring to voice their hopes for fear of being mistaken. In that frozen quiet and stillness, Ephraim went on, yes, we know that death is a riddle unanswered, but new life's creation, that can be conquered. Every heart was pounding as Ephraim reached the last line. We prayed and davened for this moment, and now it is here. Our baby is due in half a... He never finished the line. As the room erupted in cries of elation and tears, the men pounced on Ephraim while the women tackled Eliza with hugs, kisses, and wet cheeks until they fell into their chairs exhausted. It took only a few moments for half the neighborhood to turn up in their house. For so many years they had longed to hear such news and had despaired of ever hearing it, and now a miracle like this? It's not every day that a couple is blessed with a child after 27 years of waiting. It was clear to all that a circle had closed. The woman who had founded the group that supported everyone else and helped everyone have a child now joined the group of those prayers that were answered. It would no longer be the childless woman's meeting, but rather a gathering of all mothers. And now, back to the supermarket. How did I, a cashier in the supermarket, come into this story? Now, the couple walked into the store where I worked. When I saw her fall, that was the woman that fell on her face. I ran over to try and help her. Her husband was upset, but he tried to remain calm. Listen to me. We have been married. He's telling the cashier this. We've been married for 27 years without children. My wife is expecting our first child. Please call Hatzalah immediately. She fell. That was the woman that fell in the supermarket. I was stunned, paralyzed, but I pulled myself together in a hurry, finding new strength. I ran to the phone, called for an ambulance, and screamed for help in a hurry. I don't remember what I yelled, but my panic brought the paramedics over in about 2 minutes. They put the woman on a stretcher and whisked her away. I followed them out and told her husband, I want you to let me know how she's doing. I wrote down his phone number and found out what hospital they were going to. I will never forget that image. A self-controlled, dignified man, but a world of pain in his eyes. Could you imagine? She fell right on her stomach after 27 years. I could sense his fear and his worry, yet he did not raise his voice or curse as anyone else would have done. He was controlled. He was an ish emunah and an ish musar. He didn't even ask, how do you let people walk into a place that's in the middle of construction? He didn't say a word. His eyes told the story of a man trying to be stronger than his pain. The ambulance sped off, and I found myself sitting and talking to God. Now, although I'm proud to be Jewish, I come from a non-religious home. My parents and their parents before them didn't even keep Shabbat. And we didn't even keep kosher in Israel. Not religious, not kosher. Yet I found myself talking for the first time in my life to God. I sat there and I cried. The manager didn't even tell me to go back to the cash register, which was my position. He understood what I was feeling. After what just happened, there was tension in the air. we all fearfully waited for the news. We all thought about how people would say that this would be the supermarket where a woman who lost her baby after being barren and childless for 27 years. Would you like to have the reputation of being the store where a woman who had no kids for 27 years lost the baby? I felt like a criminal working in this store. I thought of how I could have prevented this, but instead I froze up and did nothing. I called the hospital several times to find out what had happened. The nurse on duty said she couldn't give me any information, but that she would let the patient know that I tried to reach her. I went home, sad and afraid. All I knew was, if that lady lost her baby, I would never forgive myself. I thought I would go crazy, sitting at home alone. I wanted to pray, so I looked around and found the only Jewish book we had in the house, a book of Tehillim. I think my brother received it as a bar mitzvah present, but no one ever opened it. How could you imagine living in Israel, never even having opened a Sefer Tehillim once? I opened it up, and as I began reading, I could feel the word speaking to me, calling out to God. Before I closed my eyes, I said, God, if you give life to this child, I will be yours forever. I didn't understand the full meaning of these words, but I felt that if that child were to die, I would die with that child. I fell asleep, and the phone call woke me up. I picked it up and heard a woman's voice. It was Eliza Meir, the woman who had fallen. She said, I heard you were worried. I just wanted to let you know that the baby is all right. Baruch Hashem, in a few days, I'll be allowed to go home. I was so happy and relieved, I started to cry, and she knew how I really meant it when I thanked her for letting me know. I told her that I was praying for her. She said I wasn't the only one praying for her, and although there was no way of knowing whose prayer was answered, she felt that my prayers certainly made a difference for the baby. For my part, I was convinced that it was my tefillah that saved the baby, because I never prayed in my life once, and I never prayed like that. In fact, I'd never prayed at all. Even now, I'm still sure that it's me that saved that baby. It was my tefillah that saved her. I called a few more times after that to check how she was doing, and I asked her to let me know when the baby was born. 2 months later, as Eliza's due date approached, her doctor scheduled her for a cesarean section. When he told her to come on March 13th, he had no idea that on a Jewish calendar that day was the 14th of Adar, the day of Purim. That year, Ephraim and Eliza experienced their own Purim. After 27 years of no children, they held their own baby in their arms. I was present at the bris, one of the hundreds of guests who all felt that this was their child. They named him El-Or Avichai, because he brought light to his parents. Or means light, El is God. After all those dark years. And Avichai because he brought new life to his father. Avi, father, Chai, life. But that child brought life not just to his parents, he brought life to me. I was a woman as far as being religious as you could be. Totally not religious. And suddenly I began to take an interest in learning Torah and growing in Judaism. I went slowly, step by step, with no major decisions. After a year, I officially crossed the line and became a Baalat Tshuva, a Baalas Tshuva. A year and a half later, I got engaged to a man who was also a Baal Tshuva. A week after my engagement, I got a double invitation to a bris and a kiddush. The Meirs were now blessed with twins after the first boy. A boy and a girl. I went with my chassan to be part of their celebration. And that is the story of the Meir family. The parents are now the 53-year-old proud parents of 3 children. El-Or, Avichai, Nehorai, and Anael. Names full of Emunah Hashem, great light, and heavenly mercy. It's no exaggeration to say that this changed my life. I saw the hand of Hashem in this story, and I recently received the gift of life when I gave birth to my own daughter 6 months ago.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.